So there's plethora of different business models out there, and you probably saw the ad before you even hopped on this video. Your favorite influencer is gonna tell you real estate, e-commerce, drop shipping, whatever it may be. They're always gonna have an agenda to pitch you guys. But in this video, I really wanted to be able to break down which business model to go ahead and actually choose, and the answer might actually surprise you. I'm not actually gonna give you guys one business model to choose from. Instead, we're gonna figure out which business model is gonna best work for you. So let's go ahead and get into this video right now. Hey, what's going on, guys? So my name is Boo. So now I've actually started over 7 businesses. Now, of course, I've had my fair share of wins and also my fair share of failures. And honestly, I'm more grateful for my failures than my actual successes, because in failure, it's going to actually be able to help you guys see exactly what's going wrong with the business model and also how to be able to pivot and adapt. At the end of the day, you learn the most from failure, so it's going to be very key. So throughout my actual time of starting and scaling these businesses, right, well, I've came to realize it's not necessarily about the business model. So what I've actually learned right through my fair share of trial and error is that's way more important in order to be able to choose the right business model than to figure out exactly what's hot right now or what's making money. Trust me, guys, there's going to be opportunities that present itself, like once in a lifetime opportunities, every single year. So you have to just stay focused and figuring out which business model works for you is ultimately going to take you further. It's a lot better than to be able to maximize every new money getting strategy right off the bat, right? And so I'm actually came to realize it's so important to pick out the right business model, because if you don't pick the right business model, you'll be spinning your wheels and wondering why you ever got into business in the first place. So choosing the right business model is going to help you see success a lot sooner. Now, of course, at the end of the day, it's still going to go ahead and take time, but it's also going to be able to help you alleviate that burnout that we often feel whenever we don't just quite align with the business. Because when I first got into business, I was like, all right, cool, let me go ahead and do whatever actually makes money. And so when I first got into business, I really got into it just because I saw somebody else making money from it. And that was actually one of the absolute worst ways in order to be able to pick out a business model, just by simply seeing somebody else do it. You don't have their skills, you don't have their upbringing. And so also you don't have their background and expertise in whatever they're doing. So picking a business model based off of somebody else is completely asinine. So that's not going to help you at all whatsoever. So instead of asking yourself, what's the right business model to pay? The question is completely wrong. The right question you should be asking yourself is, what am I naturally good at that I can be able to turn into a business? So that's a completely different question that's going to get you a completely different answer. And that answer is going to help you be able to achieve success a lot faster. So let's go ahead and get into it as far as identifying which business model to go ahead and choose based off of your strengths and also your weaknesses as well. So before you go ahead and actually hop on Google, before you go ahead and make you a logo from Taylor Brand or a Shopify store, please, guys, first ask yourself, what am I naturally good at? Now, you can find this out through a plethora of different ways, right? You can figure out exactly what's natural to you, right? What do you naturally excel at? So what do people in your close circle come to you for? Like such as help with money, such as help with homework, whatever it may be. Maybe you're scientifically inclined. Maybe you're mathematically inclined. Now, Naval Ravikant has said this. So entrepreneurship is a game that whoever puts in the most hours is actually going to go ahead and win. So that being said, right, you want to be able to find a business model and also something that aligns with your strengths where it doesn't necessarily feel like work with you. Because if somebody else is trying to compete with you, right, and they're grinding their teeth trying to be able to bust out another hour while you're simply in flow state, not even realizing what time it is, you're always going to win compared to that other person, because it's so easy for you. It doesn't even feel like work. So that's the intersection you want to be able to be at before you go ahead and pick out a business model. So the second step, right, after you went ahead and found out your strengths, so whenever we go ahead and actually look at our weaknesses, these are things that we can be able to optimize the team around, right? So look, guys, at the end of the day, let's face it, you can be great at everything, right? So you honestly have to be able to figure out what things you're naturally good at and also figure out what weaknesses you actually have, what things that you don't necessarily enjoy doing. So whenever I started a business, I constantly made this mistake, right? Because being an entrepreneur, you believe that nobody can do it quite as good as me. If it doesn't get done by me, it won't get done right. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because honestly, if you don't like doing it, there is somebody else that does enjoy doing it. And so if they enjoy doing it, right, just like I said before, then they're always going to be able to get a better outcome than you just simply rushing through it, trying to go ahead and get it done. So what you should actually do, right, is focus on what you do best, and then you want to delegate the rest. So whenever you have so much work as far as being a business owner, so that's when you want to start delegating, because that way you can know to replace yourself from doing those lower value tasks and get getting more production. That's honestly how you start to make more money, right? By being able to leverage yourself and doing the high income earning activities while you have other people doing lower value tasks. Now, let's not get this misconstrued, because just because it's a lower value task does not mean it doesn't have to get done. It just doesn't have to get done by you, right? So one good rule of thumb that I would think about, right, is, let's say, for example, you have a skill in sales. So if you have a skill in sales, right, let's say your time is worth at around $1,000 an hour. So if you're the business owner and you're supposed to go ahead and reach out to a lot of different prospects in order to be able to get them to convert, that's going to be more worth your while than going ahead and doing admin work, such as sending out contracts, looking at your email, even possibly updating your calendar. These are all things that could be replaced and also delegated to. So you can be able to free up your mind and only focusing on those higher income activities. So that way, any task you do has to be worth $1,000 or more. This actually going to segue perfectly, because so with all business models, they all have leverage. So business is not just about making money, right? At the end of the day, business is about being able to maximize your input to be able to get the maximum output, right? And you do this by getting leverage. So our communities once said, give me a place to stand and also a lever long enough and I can move the world. So in business, it's the same exact way, right? You want to be able to figure out which business model actually has the highest form of leverage. So in business, there's 4 main types of leverage, right, that we're going to be actually talking about. So the first type of leverage, right, is going to be capital-based leverage. So this is more about investment strategies, right? So if you're great at actually managing money, you can be able to actually utilize your money or money that you're borrowing, right? So to be able to go ahead and actually deploy for a better rate of return, right? So these are businesses such as investing, venture capitalists, or even real estate as well, right? These are all different business models where you can be able to actually utilize your business in order to be able to work for you. Now, a second form of leverage, right, is going to be labor leverage, right? So these are going to be business models that are people-driven businesses, in which if you have a great deal of leadership, you can be able to go ahead and actually create a culture. So if you're a great leader, right, that you can actually be able to cultivate an actual culture that can be able to come together and be able to manage different teams, this is going to be a great business model for you. So these are business models such as Walmart, consulting firms like Boston Consulting, agencies like marketing agencies. So you have to be able to manage a team in order for the team to actually be able to work, right? So you have law firms, you have a lot of different agencies. These are all different aspects of a labor leverage business. So it's going to be very, very centric on people in order to be able to drive it. And so you definitely want to make sure your leadership skills are on point. So number 3 is going to be media leverage, right? So it's going to be something such as content, brand building. So if you're really great at storytelling, if you're great at communication, and you want to be able to actually change the narrative and also be able to build out an audience, this is actually going to be the right one for you. So you want to be able to think about PewDiePie. You want to think about Joe Rogan. You want to think about different podcasts, right? Because those are all media-based leverage. So I really like this actual media leverage, because think about it. So who else is like Joe Rogan? Who else is like PewDiePie? At the end of the day, they're very unique because they're all themselves, right? And that's exactly how you stay away from competition, by being able to actually be super unique and authentic to yourself. So at the end of the day, nobody can be you better than yourself, right? So you can be able to use media in order to be able to scale your influence and reach millions of people. Now, the fourth type of leverage, right, is going to be code-based leverage. So it's going to be like technology and also a lot of automation-based businesses. So if you're a person that really loves to be able to build out systems, be able to build out softwares, and also be able to build out automations, this is definitely going to be a business model for you, because with code, right, you can be able to program something once and then it can be able to multiply by helping a lot of other people. So that's definitely going to be something that's very advantageous, especially if you want to be able to reach millions and billions of people, right? If you want to be able to make 10 million, so in order to be able to make 100 million, you might have to go ahead and find out what other business models are actually at that $100 million mark, right? And so with that being said, you always want to be able to figure out which leverage model is going to be able to help you achieve your goals a lot faster. The fourth step that I really wanted to talk about, right, is that if you're going to be in business, you want to be able to pick out a business model that's going to be able to help you reap the most benefits in the long run. And how we're actually able to do this, right, is by being able to use the great power of compounding interest, right? You can be able to go ahead and pick out a business model that's terrible for you. It doesn't allow for your strengths. You feel like you're constantly burnt out. You're constantly working. Or you can actually go ahead and pick out a business model that you do like. You love to be around other people. You love to continue and come back to work, right? And so this is going to be a very, very important thing, because at the end of the day, the time's going to go by anyways, right? So you want to be able to pick out a business model that's going to be able to help you in the long run to actually be able to compound in a good way, not in a negative way. because people often think that compound interest is only going to work in a positive way. That's not true, right? Success doesn't happen overnight and failure doesn't either, right? So you can be able to see that if you don't take action today, in a year from now, it's only going to get worse, and vice versa. If you take action today, in a year, it's going to get a lot better. So this is going to be a very, very crucial step as far as compound interest that we do have to keep in mind. And that's why I'm a big proponent of choosing the right business model to begin with, instead of just going ahead and jumping the gun and starting a business, right? Because yes, you might start making money in the short term, but in the long term, you're going to hate your life. That's just a simple way to put it. And a couple of traits in order to be able to figure this out, right, is by being able to look at these three different things. So the first thing, right, is that the best businesses always have scalability. So they always have scalability, which allows them to be able to grow exponentially without much effort, right? So if you want to be able to have customized solutions for every single client, that's going to be a lot harder to be able to scale into the millions and billions, because you need to be able to have a lot of common similarities. So that's why you need to be able to have scalability. Number two is going to be network effects. What that simply means is that with every new user that your product gains, and so what that actually means, right, is that the more people use your actual product, your actual code, the more actually benefit from it. Think about Facebook, think about content, right? Think about Instagram. If you have more people producing content, then a lot of more people are going to want to produce more and more content that's better. So that way you can actually be able to get more people to actually make the network completely better just by being able to utilize it more and more. Now, the third way, right, is going to be residual income. At the end of the day, guys, there's going to be a lot of work that you have to actually put up, but you want to be able to have a business model that actually gives you residual income in the long run. And that's going to allow you to be able to have good output for the input that you're putting in. And so this happens by being able to actually leverage systems, because once you start to leverage systems, then you can be able to do it once and get paid forever for it. So that's going to be the power of being able to have residual income. So let's say, for example, a high-ticket business model, right? You have to constantly go ahead and sell. And compared to a YouTube channel where you actually go ahead and post a video, and it's almost like digital real estate. So over the years, people can be able to come back and your video can blow up. And that way you can still be able to go ahead and actually make money from it, right? So you want to be able to choose a business model that will compound over time, eventually building out wealth, not just income in the short term. So if you guys have gotten anything in this video, I really want to be able to stress out to be very intentional, right, as far as which business model as you end up going ahead and choose, because you want to be able to live out with a life of design, not just a life of randomness and haphazardness, because most people end up choosing a business model that they're just aware of, they're exposed to. So it's honestly one of the worst ways to be able to pick out a business model, because you honestly have to think about it, right? So Elon Musk does not work harder than the average mom and pop grocery store. He just has a different form of leverage. So that's the actual benefit of choosing the right business model as well. So let's recap, guys. If you're really, really serious about starting a business, here are the different steps that you guys to choose. One is to figure out where your strengths lie, right? What are you naturally good at? What feels like work to you, but play to others? Number two is to identify your weaknesses. You want to be able to figure out what you're not good at, so you can delegate this to your team and start to hire immediately. Then number three is going to be to pick out a business model that's going to go ahead and give you leverage, right? So you want to be able to go ahead and pick out a business model that gives you leverage, and that's going to be very, very crucial. And number four is to go ahead and focus on compounding to be able to build out a business that builds you wealth, not just income. So with that being said, that was it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoy it. Get your boys at 10K subscribers as soon as possible. So go ahead and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell notifications below. And like always, I'll see you at the time, my boy. Let's get it.